Chicago. A rainy afternoon in early May 2023. The rain was pouring down on the trees outside the Cook County Courthouse. Amidst the crowd rushing to find shelter, I clutched a heavy folder to my chest. It felt heavier than all my years of marriage combined. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I am 32 years old. The little girl curled up against my shoulder is my daughter, Lily. She had just turned 4 that day, too young to understand why her parents walked into a room together and walked out no longer husband and wife. Inside the folder, I carried Lily's birth certificate, the mutually agreed divorce decree, the child support order set at $600 a month, and a bank book showing a $40,000 settlement. I squeezed it until my fingers went numb. Money can buy a place to sleep, but it can't buy back the years I lived as a ghost in my own home. David, my ex-husband, walked out last. He is 4 years older than me, a regional sales director for an electrical supply distributor. Looking at his immaculate suit, no one would ever guess he had just signed away his marriage. His cell phone wouldn't stop lighting up with a name, Melissa. David looked at me with a tone as calm as if he were giving instructions to a delivery driver. Keep those papers safe. I'll transfer the child support as agreed. I told you in the courtroom, and I'm repeating it so we're clear. There are things people have to say twice, usually because the first time they say it, they aren't entirely sure they'll actually follow through. David frowned. Over the last few years, whenever he got annoyed, I usually stayed quiet. I used to think that if one person in a marriage gave in, the house would weather fewer storms. Later, I realized that giving in to keep the peace is very different from giving in to the point where the other person feels entitled to hurt you. When we got married, I was an administrative assistant at a furniture company. After Lily was born, she was sick constantly, and our parents lived far away. David told me to quit my job for a few years to take care of her. Once, he took my hands and said sweetly, "Stay home and take care of our little girl. I'll make the money to support both of you." I believed him. But from the day I stopped bringing home a paycheck, the way he looked at me started to change. At the beginning of every month, David would leave the grocery money on the kitchen island and question every single cent I spent. Once, Lily's fever spiked to 104 degrees. I grabbed her and took an Uber to the Lurie Children's Hospital ER in the middle of the night. I called him 5 times, and he didn't answer. When I got back in the morning, the first thing he asked was, "How much did that cost?" I hugged my daughter, filled with rage and sorrow. "You're not even going to ask how she is?" David changed his shirt and replied with total indifference, "I'm asking so I can budget. Besides, you're home all day. What are you so tired from? All you have to do is watch the kid." He repeated that phrase so many times I actually started wondering if I was useless. If a shirt wasn't ironed, if dinner got a little cold, or if Lily happened to be crying right when he walked through the door, everything automatically became my fault. They say that rowing together, you can cross any ocean. But if one person is rowing and the other is standing in the boat criticizing how slow you're going, you exhaust yourself before you even reach the halfway mark. I found out about David and Melissa because of a hotel receipt in his jacket pocket. At first, he claimed it was for a business trip with a client. Then I saw the text messages reserving a bouquet of roses for the exact day of Melissa's birthday. For my birthday, 2 weeks prior, he had just sent me a Venmo with the note, "Buy yourself something." That night, waiting for Lily to fall asleep, I shoved his phone in his face. "Since when are you two together?" David stared at the screen for a few seconds without flinching or denying it. "Since you know, let's just be clear. I'm sick of coming home and always seeing you scowling." I let out a laugh of pure, agonizing pain. "Your daughter gets sick, you don't show up, and I spend the whole night awake. And you say I'm scowling? Dinner gets cold because I'm waiting for you, and you say this house suffocates you? So, you sleeping with someone else is my fault too?" David leaned back in his chair. "I just don't feel anything anymore. You keep the kid. I'll send you the money. Don't make a scene, or we'll both look ridiculous." There was a time when I would have waited for an apology, or at least a sentence explaining things. But he talked about our marriage like he was liquidating an old piece of junk. We divide the parts, and everyone goes their separate ways. That's why, on the day we went to court, I didn't argue. The $40,000 was registered as the liquidation of our marital assets and initial support to get us established. The $600 a month was his sole legal obligation to Lily, to be transferred before the 5th of every month. I read every line and double-checked everything. I no longer believed in his "I'll take care of it" because that was the exact phrase that made me hand over my career, my income, and my youth. The rain still hadn't stopped. David opened his black umbrella and looked at our daughter. "Come here, Lily. Daddy will walk you to the car." The little girl clung tightly to my neck and turned her face away. David tensed up. "Don't fill her head with things to make her hate me." I felt a chill down my spine. "Relax. I don't need to teach her to hate her father. Kids remember who is there for them when they need it." His phone vibrated again. David answered and stepped away. Suddenly, his voice turned soft, dripping with a sweetness I hadn't received in a long time. "I'm done. Wait for me in the car, it's raining hard." I watched him walk away toward the vehicle parked across the street. Under an awning, an older woman looked at me and sighed. I don't know if she felt pity or was just curious to see how much an abandoned woman would cry, but I didn't shed a tear. Lily rested her little hand on my cheek. "Mommy, where is Daddy going?" "Daddy has things to do. He isn't coming home with us?" I swallowed the lump in my throat before answering. "From now on, Daddy is going to live in another house." The little girl blinked, watching the rain fall, and asked, "Then, where are we going?" In my mind, an image appeared. A brick house in a small rural town in Illinois, the potted plants on the porch, the smell of my mother's pot roast, and the old oak tree where my dad used to drink his morning coffee. I still believed that no matter what happened in the world, your parents' house was the one place a daughter could always return to. I adjusted Lily's jacket and spoke with a firm voice. "We're going to Grandma and Grandpa's house. I'm sure they'll love us being there." Lily nodded and rested her head on my shoulder. I picked up my daughter, walked down the courthouse steps, and stepped directly into the rain. At that moment, I didn't know that out of the sentence I had just spoken, the word that would hurt me the most later on wouldn't be Grandma and Grandpa, but the words I'm sure. The metro train pulled out of Union Station just as the rain started to ease. I sat by the window with one arm around Lily and the folder safely at my feet. She dozed, gripping my sweater. I told myself everything would be easier as soon as I got home. From the small local station to my parents' house, it was barely 2 miles. The rural road glistened with puddles. The landscape was so familiar it almost made me forget that I was returning as a divorced woman. The brick house looked exactly the same. The porch plants were there. My dad, Tom, was under the overhang, and the smell of pot roast drifted from the kitchen. As soon as I got out of the taxi, my mother, Rose, stepped out. She looked at me, then at Lily, and finally locked her eyes on my suitcase. "You're here." Her tone wasn't the same as when we visited for Thanksgiving. There was no hug, no gesture to pick up her granddaughter. I tried to smile. "Yeah, we're here." Lily hid timidly behind my legs. My mother bent down to pat her head. "Do you remember Grandma?" "Yes." My dad walked up from the backyard, his jeans stained with mud from the garden. He looked at me longer than my mother did. His lips moved as if he wanted to ask something, but in the end, he just grabbed the suitcase. "Come inside." It's chilly out here. Hearing my dad treat me with that kind of warmth made my eyes sting. But right then, Ethan came out of his room. His hair was a mess, and he had his phone in his hand. He looked at the suitcase and frowned. "Are you moving back here for good?" My mother scolded him under her breath. "What kind of way is that to talk?" Ethan shrugged. "I'm just asking. I use your old room to store my tools and gaming stuff now. If you're staying, where am I supposed to put it all?" I answered calmly. "Lily and I are just staying for a few days. Leave your things in the corner. It's fine." Ethan didn't say anything else, but his grimace spoke louder than words. Not even half an hour later, Mrs. Higgins, the next-door neighbor, had already come over to bring some baked goods. Brenda, from the local corner store, also poked her head in. News of my divorce was already flying around the small town. Mrs. Higgins looked me up and down. "I heard your husband has a great job. How did things get to this point when everything was fine?" Brenda chimed in. "Young couples nowadays get so worked up over nothing. Back in the day, our parents fixed their problems behind closed doors." My mother sighed with a tone caught between sadness and reproach. She's a grown woman. She doesn't listen to me when I talk to her anyway. With just one sentence, my mother made it clear to everyone that I simply hadn't known how to keep my husband. Mrs. Higgins lowered her voice. "He's got money, honey. Did he lay a hand on you? Because if not, For you to leave him, something really bad must have happened that you aren't telling us. My hand froze while pouring a glass of water. Lily, sitting on the tile floor, didn't understand everything, but she looked up at me sideways. I smiled coldly. My marriage issues are resolved. Right now, my only concern is my daughter. Mrs. Higgins let out a forced laugh. Of course. Only those sleeping in the bed know if the sheets are burning. I didn't reply. It sounded like sympathy, but her eyes were gleaming with pure gossip. At dinner time, my mother served the pot roast, mashed potatoes, and green beans. She gave the biggest, thickest slice of meat to Ethan. Eat up, sweetie. You have your apprenticeship classes tomorrow. Then she turned to me and gave me an end piece. You eat too. Since we were kids, the best of everything in the house always went to Ethan. And me, being the oldest, always had to give in. But that day, that end piece of meat put a knot in my throat. Lily pointed at her uncle's plate. Mommy, I want a big piece. Ethan immediately pulled his plate closer to him. I'm already eating this. I gave my daughter the rest of the meat from my own plate. Here, you can have Mommy's. The little girl smiled right away. Kids only need a piece of food. But adults sometimes take a lifetime to understand what it feels like to always be put in second place. After dinner, I helped my mother wash the dishes and clean the kitchen, trying to do everything carefully, as if our presence was an inconvenience. At night, my dad was sitting out on the porch. I had just put Lily to bed when he called me over. Sarah, come talk for a minute. I pulled up a chair across from him. He stared out into the dark yard, avoiding my eyes. The divorce and the money. How did you guys settle it? I got my share of the assets, a $40,000 settlement, and David has to keep paying Lily's child support every month. My dad nodded. Keep that money safe. Put it in a fixed-term CD for Lily, and for when you need to rent a place later on. Right then, my mother stepped out of the kitchen. It's not good for a young woman to have that much cash just sitting around. Give it to me. I'll hold on to it for you. When you need it, you can ask me for it. I looked at my mother. I already put it in the bank. I can manage my own paperwork. My mother smiled, but her mouth was rigid. I'm just worrying about you. Your head is a mess right now. If you listen to some fast talker, you're going to end up with nothing. I'm not giving my money to anyone, Mom. The atmosphere on the porch turned heavy. My dad intervened quickly. She was just asking. Anyway, if anything happens to you too, this house won't turn its back on you. My mother spun toward him, talking as if I were offending her. Don't look at me like that. Anyone would think I'm kicking her out. I forced a smile. I don't think that. But inside, the first crack had formed. That night, I laid out a blanket to sleep with Lily in what used to be my room. The pencil marks measuring my height at 16 were still on the wall, but the closet was now full of Ethan's tools, and the study corner was crammed with cables and boxes. Lily rolled over and hugged my arm. Mommy, Grandma loves me, right? I stroked her hair. Of course she does. Grandma loves you very much. So, we're gonna live here now? I looked up at the peeling paint on the ceiling. I heard my mother close the kitchen door, my dad coughing on the porch, and Ethan laughing on the phone in the next room. I don't know yet, but for now, we're staying here. Lily closed her eyes peacefully, and I lay there motionless for a long time, forcing myself to believe that those looks, those questions, and that piece of meat at dinner were just trivial things. There are houses that keep their roof, their kitchen, and the titles of mom and dad totally intact. But for the person returning, there is no longer the same space as before. At midnight, I woke up because Lily was stirring. Her little hand was reaching out blindly for a glass of water. She was thirsty, but kept her eyes closed, calling for me softly. I gently untangled her hand from my shirt. I got up and walked toward the kitchen. The house was so quiet, my footsteps echoed on the linoleum. I was about to turn on the light when I heard my mother's voice from the living room. I just can't believe it. Not knowing how to keep a husband. A man with a house, a car, giving her money every month. And she just lets him walk off with some floozy. My hand stopped in midair. My dad lowered his voice. She just got back. Stop going in circles about it. Is it really only her fault? You're always making excuses for him. He didn't hit her, he didn't drink, they had food on the table. What more did she want? Women need to be softer when they get married. If a man comes home from work and you always give him a dirty look, who can stand that? I froze behind the partition wall. My mother didn't know about the nights I stayed awake with a sick child while my husband was in a hotel with someone else. What hurt the most wasn't that she didn't know, but that she had never even bothered to ask. My dad sighed. Well, she's still our daughter. What's done is done. Now we have to think about the two of them. My mother let out a dry laugh. Think with what? Before, David would come for Christmas and leave us some money. When your back hurt, he paid for your meds. Now with the divorce, this house loses a good son-in-law. From the other bedroom, Ethan's voice drifted out. It turned out he wasn't asleep either. Mom's right. David promised he'd get me a job at his company through a connection. Now that my sister got all high and mighty and he's marrying someone else, who's going to look out for us? My dad grunted. You take care of your own studies and your own job. Don't blame your sister. Ethan let out an ironic laugh. If I take care of it, where are you getting the money for my next semester's tuition? And my car belongs in a junkyard. I have to drive to my classes. My sister has $40,000. If she gives a little to the family, nobody's going to die. My mother lowered her voice. She clings to that bank book like her life depends on it. This afternoon I told her I'd hold on to it, and she got all defensive. Ethan replied, well, if she won't cough up a dime, tell her to go rent a place somewhere else. That room is for my stuff, and now suddenly they're invading it. I had hoped my mother would scold him, even with just one word, but her voice sounded colder than the afternoon rain. Honestly, if it weren't for that $40,000 settlement she has, I would have told her to find somewhere else to live. This house is not an asylum for discarded women. I gripped the edge of the wall hard. It turned out the roof I had used to comfort my daughter was nothing more than a mathematical calculation. They weren't accepting me because I was their daughter, but because I was carrying a valuable bank account. My dad stayed quiet for a moment, then said, You've got some bad blood talking like that. Bad blood? If she moves back here, people will say we have an abandoned daughter living with Ethan, a bachelor. If we get that reputation in town, who's going to want to marry him? I wanted to walk out and ask what my divorce had to do with Ethan getting married, but I remembered Lily sleeping. I swallowed my words, drank some water, and went back to the room. Lily was lying there, one little foot sticking out from under the blanket. I covered her up and sat leaning against the headboard. I didn't cry until dawn. There are pains that cut so deep that tears can no longer flow. The next morning, my mother woke up early to make oatmeal for Lily. She served it in a little cartoon bowl, blew on it to cool it down, and called her. Come eat breakfast. Look what Grandma made you. If I hadn't heard the conversation the night before, I would have thought my mother was just clumsy with words, not with her heart. Lily ate breakfast and told her, Grandma, last night I dreamed we had a slide. My mother smiled at her, then turned to me. Sarah, give me that bank book later and I'll take a look. I know a guy at the local branch. We can get better interest somewhere else. I put down my glass of water. I already have it in a high-yield account. If I pull it out now, there's a penalty. I'll manage, Mom. If I'm not going to steal it from you, why are you getting so defensive? I didn't say you were going to steal it, but I need that money for Lily's future. My mother frowned. Always Lily this, Lily that. Aren't your parents and your brother your family too, or what? I didn't say that. When you truly need something, I'll help however I can, but I'm not giving this account to anyone else to manage. Ethan walked in from the patio, heard the last sentence, and let out a laugh. Do you think there are thieves in this house, sis? You get a few bucks and suddenly you talk differently, huh? He pulled up a chair and grabbed a piece of toast. Living on borrowed time and you're hiding your money. If it weren't for that bank account, let's see who'd put up with you for long. The kitchen went ice cold. My mother yelled at him to cover it up. Watch your mouth! But the sentence had already dropped right in front of Lily. The little girl stopped chewing, looked at her uncle, and then at me. Mommy, what is borrowed time? She pulled on my sleeve. Are we crashing here, Mommy? If we run out of money, is Grandma going to kick us out? Ethan kept eating, staring at his plate like nothing happened. My mother, nervous, scooped more oatmeal. Kids don't know what they're talking about. Eat, sweetie. But Lily didn't open her mouth. She just looked at me, waiting for an answer. I picked her up. No one is going to treat us like we're crashing. Do you hear me? So, this is our house, Mommy? I stayed quiet. A 4-year-old doesn't understand marital assets or dignity. She just needs to know if the place where she sleeps is a place where she is truly loved. I could have swallowed my mother's words behind the wall, and I could have ignored my brother's insolence. But I couldn't let my daughter grow up watching me bow my head to beg for a place to sleep. They say blood is thicker than water, but if your family only remembers you when they see cash, sometimes the water from strangers is much cleaner. I didn't argue for the rest of the day. I helped my mother wash vegetables, hung up the laundry, and dusted the furniture. I didn't tell my dad what I'd heard either. He loved me, but his affection was too weak to act as a shield against my mother's words and Ethan's disrespect. When night fell, I put Lily to bed early. She curled up into a ball pressed against me, as if she feared that if she let go, this place would disappear too. I looked at my daughter's face in the lamplight, and suddenly felt a strange calm. I was no longer waiting for anyone to give me permission to stay. As dawn approached, I got up, pulled the suitcase from under the bed, and opened the old closet. I folded our clothes very slowly, terrified the sound of the zipper would wake Lily. All of our worldly possessions fit in one small suitcase. Some clothes, a few cartons of milk, Tylenol, her faded stuffed bunny, and the blanket she always hugged at night. I put the birth certificate, the divorce decree, my ID, and the bank documents into a waterproof sleeve and hid them at the bottom. Outside on the porch, the cool morning wind was blowing. I dragged the suitcase to the living room and stopped in front of my parents' door. Light filtered through the crack. I heard my dad cough weakly and my mother roll over in bed. I only had to knock, and maybe she would ask me to stay. I even raised my hand, but Lily's question echoed in my head. Mommy, if we run out of money, is Grandma going to kick us out? I lowered my hand. There are doors that, if opened only to beg for pity, are better left closed while you walk away on your own 2 feet. I went in and gently picked up Lily. She rubbed her face against my neck. Mommy, where are we going? We're going to find a new house. The sun isn't even up yet. We're leaving early so it doesn't get too hot. Lily hugged her stuffed bunny, let me put her jacket on, and I carried her out. When I opened the front door, the hinges creaked. I stood still for a few seconds, but the house remained silent. I left the spare key on the windowsill next to the potted plants. I didn't leave a note. At the end of the street, the town's older taxi driver was already waiting. He helped me with the suitcase and asked, "To the bus station?" "Yes, take me to the metro station to head toward Joliet." The car rolled down the damp rural road. I looked back once. The familiar roof disappeared behind the fence and faded out of sight. When we got to the station, the sky was starting to lighten. I bought Lily a chocolate milk and got myself a hot coffee. Mommy, does Grandma know we left? She'll find out later. She'll be sad. Maybe so. Then why didn't we say goodbye? I stroked her hair. I was afraid of waking her up. When we get settled, I'll call her. The train arrived just before 6 a.m. I picked 2 seats by the window, put the folder at my feet, and looped the strap around my wrist. As the train left the rural fields covered in a thin fog, my phone vibrated. It was my dad. Sarah, where did you go? I'm taking Lily to Joliet to find a place. I'll let you know when we're settled. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? I swallowed hard. I was afraid that if I spoke, I wouldn't have been able to leave. He stayed quiet for a moment. I know your mother has a sharp tongue. I'll talk to Ethan. Come back. The girl is too small to be living in rentals. It's going to be hard on you. I looked at my daughter resting her head on my shoulder. Dad, I'd rather it be hard than have my daughter grow up thinking we're a burden. Nobody thinks that. He still didn't know everything I had heard behind the wall. I knew he loved me, but every time my mother or brother hurt me, he just told me to let it go. I had let too many things go already. Take care of your health, Dad. When we're set up, I'll bring Lily to see you. My mother snatched the phone from him. Sarah, what on earth are you doing? I say 2 things to you and you run off with the kid. When the neighbors find out, they're going to laugh at us. My heart went completely cold. You worry about people laughing. I worry about Lily hearing things she shouldn't have to hear. Nobody kicked you out of here. You don't have to say the word out to kick someone out, Mom. She went mute. I didn't take anything from the house. I left the key on the porch. When we're settled, I'll call. I hung up. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Lily looked at me. Grandma was yelling at you? She was just worried. She touched my cheek. Don't cry, Mommy. I quickly wiped my tears. I'm not crying. I just got some wind in my eye. She tilted her head. But the windows are closed. How did the wind get in? I let out a laugh through my tears. You're too smart. You caught me in a lie. During the ride, I called 2 friends. One lived with her in-laws, so it wasn't a good fit. The other advised me, Sarah, raising a kid alone is really hard. Just put up with whatever your mom says for a bit. Better to have a roof than nothing. I thanked her and hung up. If having a roof meant having to measure every glance at dinner, if every time you go to sleep you have to remember you're living on borrowed time, then that roof covers you from the rain, but it doesn't cover your dignity. I looked for Connie's number. She was the landlady of the apartment building where I rented a room when I finished community college. She picked up on the 4th ring. Hello? Hi, Connie. It's Sarah, the girl who used to rent the back room. There was silence for a few seconds. Then her voice perked up. Oh, Sarah. The admin girl who used to bring me donuts on Sundays. That's me. I'm on the train heading to Joliet right now. I have my little girl with me. Do you happen to have a room available to rent? She didn't ask where my husband was or why I was showing up alone with my kid. I have the last one down the hall. It's small and it gets hot. The bathroom is shared, but it's clean. If you want to come by, it's yours. I have enough for the deposit. Charge me the normal rent. Connie let out a kind laugh. You can be broke, honey, but never let anyone think you're coming to beg. Call me when you get to the street and I'll help you. Almost at noon, we got off at the Joliet station. The street radiated heat. Delivery trucks and commuters drove by one after another. Connie was already waiting under the corner awning, wearing a floral dress with her hair pinned up. As soon as she saw me, she grabbed the suitcase. Here, I'll take this. You keep a good hold on the little one. Lily whispered in my ear. Who is she, Mommy? Connie, the owner of our new house. Connie turned around smiling. Just so you know, the house is very, very tiny, okay? Lily answered with total sincerity, hugging me tight. It doesn't matter if it's tiny, as long as Mommy and me are together. Connie looked thoughtful for a moment, then started walking. We walked down an alleyway. You could hear the clatter of frying pans, mothers calling their kids, a sewing machine, and motorcycle engines. The back room appeared with its chipped metal door and a small window that looked directly out onto the clotheslines. I stood in the doorway, hugging Lily tightly. It was small, hot, and lacking in everything. But for the first time in many years, I knew the place I was entering was the one I had chosen on my own 2 feet. Connie pushed the door open with her shoulder. The hinges squeaked, and a little dust fell from the frame. It's been empty for a month. If it works for you, it's yours. I walked in. It was barely 100 square feet, just enough for an iron bed, a small nightstand, and a faded plastic wardrobe. The wall fan made a dry, rattling noise with every turn, like an old man coughing. Lily looked around and asked, Is this our house, Mommy? Yes. For now, this is our house. Does it lock? I froze. She didn't ask if it was pretty or ugly, just if it could lock. Yes, at night, Mommy will lock it. Good. Nobody will be able to come in. Lily nodded and sat her stuffed bunny on the bed as if she were picking out a spot for a new member of the family. The rent was $450 a month, plus a month's deposit. I sent Connie a Zelle for $900 with what little I had left in my checking account. I still hadn't touched the $40,000 settlement. Connie wrote it down in her notebook and said, If you're ever short 1 month, I'd rather you pay me a few days late than go running to those payday loan places. It's easy to get in, but impossible to get out. I'll try to be on time. Before leaving, she handed me a new padlock. The old one is loose. Change it out so you can rest easy. I tried to refuse, but she waved her hand. When things get better for you, you can buy me dinner. I started laughing. It was the first time I genuinely laughed since leaving my hometown. That afternoon, I bought some sheets, a wash basin, a couple of bowls, and a secondhand crock pot at a thrift store. Lily was sitting on the floor drawing on some newspapers and asked me, When are we going to buy a TV? When mommy has more money? Well, I can just watch cartoons on your phone, it's okay. I stroked her head. The better behaved children are when there are problems, the more it breaks a mother's heart. I stored all my important documents in the waterproof sleeve, wrapped them in a piece of cloth, and hid them at the bottom of the suitcase. After a divorce, those stamped papers sometimes protect a mother and daughter better than the promises of their own family. The next morning, I left Lily with Chloe, an early childhood education student who lived in the room next door. She was 21, petite, and talked as fast as a machine gun. You go to work. I have afternoon classes, so I'll watch her in the morning. I warned her that Lily was a bit shy around strangers. Talk to her softly, please. Chloe crouched down to her level. Hey, Lily, while you're with me, we're going to draw some princesses. Lily grabbed my hand tightly. Where are you going, Mommy? Mommy is going to work. When you finish eating lunch, I'll be back. I promise. I kissed her forehead. For sure. I promise you. From 5 a.m., I was helping out at a local diner on the main avenue. I washed lettuce, sliced cucumbers, cracked eggs for omelets, prepped sandwiches, and scrubbed the flat-top griddles. The place was packed with construction workers, so my hands never rested. During the first breakfast rush, a pan slipped, and hot bacon grease splattered on my wrist, burning like fire. But at 8:30 a.m., the owner paid me my wages in full and slipped a pancake platter into a bag. Here, take this to your little girl. I took the food and thanked her with a lump in my throat. My daughter's breakfast that day had cost me 3 hours in front of boiling grease, but I felt much more relieved than with any money handed over like charity. Around noon, I went to clean a small real estate office, and in the afternoon, I washed dishes at a strip mall cafeteria. The industrial dishwasher detergent got into my scratches, leaving my hands red and stinging. Some days, when I got back to the room, all I wanted was to collapse on the floor. But as soon as she heard my footsteps in the hallway, Lily would run to the door. Mommy, you're back. She would throw herself at my legs, as happy as if I had been gone for a month. Did you eat with Chloe? I ate some rice and eggs, and I saved you half. Chloe laughed behind her. She wouldn't finish it. She said she was sure you were coming home hungry. Every night, I wrote down all our expenses in a notebook. Rent, what I paid Chloe, groceries, electricity, water, I tracked every last cent. I realized that being poor isn't as terrifying as not knowing where your money is disappearing. Lily's anxiety, however, was becoming obvious. If I went to the shared bathroom and took a little longer than usual, she would run out calling me. Mommy, are you in there? One night, out in the hallway, a drunk neighbor yelled at his wife. Lily got scared, curled up in a corner of the bed, and covered her ears. I hugged her tight. Nobody is going to yell at us. Daddy isn't coming to take us away. I felt a pang in my heart. Nobody is going to take us. Mommy is staying with you. I crossed my heart. To help her feel less afraid, I took an empty cookie tin, covered it in construction paper, and told her it was the comeback box. Every day that I went to work and came back, fulfilling my promise, Lily got to paste a star on the lid of the box. The first day, she pasted a crooked star and asked, "If we get a lot of stars, does that mean you'll never leave?" I smiled, even though my soul ached. Even if there are no stars, I'm never going to leave. Those stars are just so you remember that Mommy always comes back. One night, it rained cats and dogs, and water leaked through the roof, right in the middle of our room. I rushed to put the wash basin under it, moved the blankets, and shoved the suitcase into a dry corner. The sound of the rain hitting the tin roof of the clothesline sounded like 100 people banging on the door. Lily was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees. Mommy, our house is crying. I put a pot under another leak, trying to sound cheerful. No, our house is just taking a shower, and it's showering with its clothes on. I let out a laugh. It's just a little embarrassed. Lily laughed too, grabbed a rag and started drying the drops splashing on the floor. We both cleaned, dodging the buckets like an obstacle course. At midnight, the rain slowed, and Lily fell asleep in my arms, her little hands still gripping my shirt. I looked at the damp room, my cracked hands, and the expense notebook next to my pillow. This new life wasn't comfortable, but at least in this room, no one asked me how much money I was bringing home to earn the right to sleep in it. The next morning, while I was trying to carry a heavy jug of water from the end of the street, A man driving an Uber stopped in front of our door, took the jug from my hands, and smiled warmly. "Let me help you with that. A woman alone with a kid, carrying this, you're going to throw your back out." I didn't yet know that in hard times, there are hands that reach out to help you up, and others that just wait for you to lose your balance. That man's name was Frank. He was in his early 30s. He lived in the first room down the hall. He left early and came back late. He was always dressed sharp and spoke in an overly slick way. Frank put the jug down in the corner and dusted off his hands. "If you need anything heavy moved, let me know. We're neighbors. Don't be shy." I thanked him. He pulled a small juice box from his pocket and offered it to Lily. "Here, for you." Lily didn't take it. She just looked at me. I shook my head. "Thank you." But she already had her milk. Frank's smile froze for a second. "Wow, you're suspicious. I'm not going to eat anyone." "It's not that. It's just that I teach my daughter not to take things from strangers." He laughed loudly. "We live in the same building. What do you mean strangers?" When he left, Connie, who was sweeping the patio, walked up to the door. "Be careful with that Frank guy. If he helps you, say thanks. But don't get too friendly, or let him in your business." "Is something wrong with him?" I asked. Connie shrugged. "I haven't caught him doing anything illegal yet." "But you know what they say. A guy who sweet-talks you that much always wants something in return. Better to keep your distance." In the days that followed, Frank appeared with weirdly perfect timing. Sometimes he had bought extra snacks. Other times he offered to give me a ride to the diner if it was on his way. I always politely declined. I didn't want to owe favors to a man I barely knew. One night, coming back from the diner, he was sitting on his motorcycle in front of my door. He handed me a business card with nothing but a phone number on it. "I have a job that would be perfect for you. Easy money." "Doing what?" "Waitressing." I looked right at him. "Waitressing? What kind?" He lowered his voice. "Just for regular clients. You sit, have a drink, chat, maybe some karaoke. If a guy wants to spend some private time, you just give in a little. With a face like yours, you could make more in one night than scrubbing dishes all week." I handed the card back. "I'm not interested." Frank gave a half smile. "A divorced chick with a little kid, living in a rental. Let's see where you pull the cash to support yourself. I give you a way out and you act all high and mighty." I answered without flinching. "I might be broke, but my self-respect isn't for sale. Don't ever bring this up to me again." His face changed completely. "You've been through the ringer and you act like a prude. You're full of yourself." I opened the door and gently pushed Lily inside. "You're done talking, so get out of my way." Frank stood up, letting out a sarcastic laugh. "Let's see how long you last." 2 days later, while hanging up laundry, I heard 2 women talking at the end of the hall. "Hey, is it true that Sarah's husband left her because she was sleeping around? She acts all innocent, but Frank says when she was married she'd go with anyone, and now she took the kid to bleed her ex dry." The hand holding Lily's t-shirt went rigid. I spun toward them. "Where did you hear that?" They both jumped. One laughed nervously. "People are just saying it. We don't know anything." "Well, if you don't know if it's true, dragging someone's reputation through the mud only dirties your own mouths." I took my laundry basket and walked away. I kept my back straight, but my hands were shaking so much I dropped the clothespins. Lily came back from playing in the courtyard with red eyes. I knelt down and asked, "Who made you cry?" She bit her lip. "Hugo told me, Daddy left us because you're a bad person." "You're bad, Mommy." I felt a stab of pain and hugged her instantly. "No, honey, I'm not bad." "Then why do they say that?" "Sometimes people don't know what's going on, but they love to make things up. Just because someone tells a lie doesn't make us bad. Remember?" Lily nodded. "Can I still play with Hugo?" "Yes, but if he says that to you again, you tell him to ask the adults about adult business and to stop trying to hurt people." That night, Connie brought me a bowl of soup, looked at me and asked, "Is Frank setting you up?" I told her about the business card and the rumors. She slammed her hand on the table next to the bowl. "I knew it. Since he couldn't get you in his bed, he's throwing you under the bus." The next morning, while everyone was out doing laundry, Connie called Frank out loudly in the middle of the courtyard. "You! Come here, we need to talk." He put his hands on his hips. "What's up, Connie?" She pointed a finger right in his face. "What's up is that you're going around saying Sarah got kicked out for cheating on her husband," he smirked. "I'm just repeating what people say." "What people?" "You're the only snake in this building. That girl works from sunup to sundown to provide for her daughter. If you're not going to help, shut your mouth." Everyone in the courtyard fell silent. Chloe came out of her room. "I watch her kid every day. Sarah goes to work and comes straight back. That's defamation." I stepped out with my phone in my hand. "I have the text messages where you suggested a certain waitressing job. After I turned you down, the rumors started. I saved everything." Frank took a half step toward me. "And what are you going to do about it?" I didn't back down. "If you harass me again or spread one more lie, I'll go straight to the Joliet Police Department and file a report for harassment." He laughed angrily. "A police report for this? Who do you think you are? I'm a person with the right to protect my honor and my daughter's safety." That afternoon, he sent me one last text message. "Watch your back, snitch. You won't live peacefully here." I didn't reply. I took screenshots, printed them at a local print shop, and went with Connie to the police station. The police called him in. It wasn't a major trial, but they made him sign a formal warning to stop harassing me and spreading lies. From that day on, whenever I crossed paths with him, he kept his eyes on the floor. The gossip in the building died down. I learned that staying quiet is sometimes prudent, but staying quiet when someone uses your dignity for fun only makes them think it doesn't hurt you. On Sunday afternoon, I took Lily to a small park near an artificial lake. She was sitting on a bench, drawing a house with a red roof on some recycled paper. I watched her as she drew a very, very big door. Just then, someone stopped in front of me and called out with a surprised voice. "Sarah? Is that you?" I looked up. It was a man in a light blue button-down shirt, holding 2 bottles of water, with a face that was both familiar and distant. After 10 years of not seeing each other, it took me a few seconds to recognize him. It was Greg. Greg smiled. "Thank goodness. I'm not so old yet that you completely forgot me." He was an old classmate from my associate's degree in business administration at the community college, a year older than me. We used to do our group projects together. He was always late, but he was the fastest at solving the accounting problems. After graduation, I heard he was working in logistics at a company in Chicago, and we lost touch. He looked at Lily, who was still drawing on the bench. "Your daughter?" "Yeah, her name is Lily." He sat down at a polite distance. He didn't stare at my worn-out clothes or ask why I was so thin. He offered me a bottle. I bought 2. "Want one?" I took it. He set the other one down for Lily. "Here you go, kiddo. But only drink it if your mom says it's okay." Lily looked at me, and I nodded. The little girl said softly, "Thank you, mister." Greg's attitude was a relief. He didn't try to buy the kid's affection all at once, nor did he use the gift to force his way into our story. He looked at the drawing. "What a cool house. Why is the door so big?" Lily answered with total honesty. "So Mommy can see me from outside when she comes back from work." Greg's smile froze for an instant. He glanced at me out of the corner of his eye, but didn't ask any more questions in front of the little girl. A little while later, when Lily went over to the swings, Greg spoke. "You live around here? I rent a room at the end of this street. Have been for a little while." "And work?" I hesitated a bit, then summarized that I helped at a diner, cleaned offices, and washed dishes on shifts. I didn't mention my family, or the creepy neighbor Frank, or use my divorce to make him feel pity. After listening, he asked, "Wouldn't you like to find something more stable?" I smiled sadly. "I'd love to, but I haven't worked in my field for almost 4 years. I've probably forgotten how to use the software, and plus, I have a kid. A lot of companies back out when they hear that. Where I work, they're looking for someone to do data entry for the warehouse inventory, full-time, office hours, but they need someone fast because there's a lot of pressure with the stock." I looked at him, surprised. "Are you going to recommend me?" He shook his head immediately. "I don't get people hired. I'm just telling you where to submit your resume and what paperwork they need. Whether they hire you or not is entirely up to you." That answer left me speechless. After so many days of feeling like people looked at me with pity, the word I feared most was help. Some favors come with the price of making you feel inferior, but Greg simply opened a door without pushing me through it. I was afraid they'd think I was a nepo hire. I'm on the operations floor. I don't make hiring decisions. The HR director, Barbara, would interview you. She has a reputation for being tough. Even if I wanted to pull strings for you, I couldn't. I laughed out loud. Hearing you say that actually gives me a lot of peace of mind. Life is strange. If people make it too easy for you, you get suspicious. If it's hard, you're glad. Greg texted me the company address and the requirements on WhatsApp. Before saying goodbye, he said, "In class, you were amazing with numbers. Taking a few years off doesn't mean you forgot. If you just let time pass, eventually even you won't know what you're capable of." I looked at my dry, cracked, dishwashing hands. Then I'll go try. I don't lose anything by doing an interview. Exactly. The only thing that will keep you stuck is not trying. That same night, after putting Lily to bed, I pulled out my old laptop to update my resume. I filled out my personal info quickly, but I froze at the professional experience section. I hadn't had a company name to write down for 4 years. All I had behind me were early mornings nursing my daughter's fevers, juggling bills to make ends meet, cooking, and consoling tears. All of that had made me more patient, careful, and stress-resistant, but on paper, it was just a giant blank space. Chloe, sitting next to me, helped me format it. "Sarah, don't overcomplicate it. Put down that you were a sales admin, handled billing, tracked shipping manifests, and that you left to care for your daughter. Be clear." I was worried. Will they think I'm obsolete? Maybe. But you can't hide it. You have to face it head on. If they look down on you for it, you wouldn't want to work there anyway. I laughed hard. "You're 21, but you sound like my grandma." Chloe put her hands on her hips. "I study early childhood education. I spend all day handling maximum-level crises. 1 cries, and 5 more cry after. There's no corporation more stressful than a room full of 3-year-olds. Thanks to her, the room felt a little less suffocating. I dug up my community college diploma, my Excel certifications, and my work history records. The nicest outfit I had was a white button-down shirt, a bit frayed at the collar, and black slacks. I washed them that night, hung them in front of the fan, and used Connie's iron in the morning. For the interview, Chloe stayed with Lily. When she saw me dressed up, the little girl asked, "Are you going to a wedding, Mommy? I'm going to ask for a job. And if they give it to me, I'll come right back home." I knelt down and intertwined my fingers with hers. "I'll be back this afternoon." Lily thought about it for a moment. She took one of the stars from her little box and stuck it to my hand. "I'll lend this to you so you aren't scared." I hugged her, holding back tears. The company was in a massive industrial park in the Chicago suburbs. Out front, there was an endless line of semi-trucks waiting to unload. The sound of barcode scanners and foremen calling out lot numbers made me feel like I was entering a world that was familiar, yet now foreign. I was interviewed by Barbara, the HR director, a woman in her 40s wearing a beige blouse, short hair, and a very sharp gaze. She reviewed my resume and got straight to the point. "You haven't worked in almost 4 years. Why should we hire you instead of someone younger who is used to the new software?" I had prepared several answers, but I didn't want to sound artificial. "I don't know if you should choose me, but if you give me a probationary period, I will learn from scratch, and I will take full responsibility for every single one of my mistakes." Barbara stared right at me. "You have a small child. What if she gets sick? I have someone who watches her and can cover for me if needed. I can't promise she will never get sick, but I do promise that I will not use my family situation as an excuse to miss work without warning. In a warehouse, there is a lot of pressure. One wrong number ruins an entire shipment." I squeezed my hands under the table. "I understand pressure. I used to track debt collections. I might be a little slow at first, but I assure you I am not careless." Barbara turned the page. "Why do you want to go back to work?" That question took me right back to my rented room, to my daughter's hand clutching my shirt, and to what I heard my mother say behind the kitchen wall. But I wasn't going to play the pity card. I need a job to support my daughter on my own. I don't want to live off anyone's pity. Barbara looked up and studied me closely. "We don't pay salaries out of pity here. That's great. I wouldn't want to be hired out of pity either. The faintest hint of a smile appeared on Barbara's lips. She gave me a basic data entry test. For the first 2 lines, my hands were shaking so much I typed the password wrong. I took a deep breath, deleted it, and started over. I finished later than the person next to me, but I triple-checked everything before submitting it. At the end of the morning, Barbara called me into her office. The company is offering you a 2-month probationary period as a warehouse administrative assistant. The base pay is $2,200 net a month, full-time hours. You start next week. I froze for a second, terrified I'd heard her wrong. Are you saying I'm hired? You're on a probationary period. Don't take it for granted. Don't celebrate just yet, I nodded repeatedly. Yes, I understand. Thank you so much. When I walked out, I stood under the shade of a large pine tree in front of the building, and suddenly, the tears fell. Not just because that salary would magically change my life, but because for the first time in years, someone looked at me as a capable human being. When Greg sent me a WhatsApp asking how it went, I replied, "I start the trial period next week." He texted back, "Congratulations. Tomorrow, go buy a notebook and a pen." People always forget those little things on their first day. I stopped by an office supply store and bought a blue spiral notebook. On the Metro train ride back, I opened to the first page and wrote, "I don't need anyone to save me. I just need to never give up." That afternoon, Lily came running to the door. Seeing that I still had the star stuck to my hand, she yelled, "Mommy, you brought the star back." I picked her up. Yes, and Mommy also brought back a new job. Lily didn't understand payrolls or probationary periods. She just hugged my neck with a huge smile. I knew that from tomorrow on, life wasn't going to be a bed of roses, but at least I had found a door I could walk through on my own 2 feet. On my first day of work, I arrived 40 minutes early. The security guard was just rolling up the warehouse shutters, and only a couple of trucks were waiting at the dock. I stood in front of the glass entrance, adjusted my collar, and repeated to myself, "Today I'm not here to ask anyone for favors." There were 4 of us in the data entry department. My desk was near the window, across from a girl of about 28 named Samantha. Samantha looked me up and down and asked, "Are you the one Greg recommended?" Greg let me know there was an opening, but I earned the interview and the job myself. Samantha scoffed slightly. "Just asking. The numbers fly by the hour here. You can't afford to be slow, no matter who recommended you." I understood instantly that I wouldn't have a peaceful adjustment period. In the morning, the team lead taught me how to match incoming shipping manifests with the system, check lot numbers, and assign them to shelving racks. I wrote 3 solid pages of notes in my blue notebook. But when doing it alone for the first time, I messed up one character. Samantha pulled her chair over and pointed at my screen. "Look closely. That's a B and an 80, not an 8. If you get one letter wrong, the whole warehouse goes crazy looking for the pallet." "I'm sorry, I'll fix it right now." Apologies don't do anything here. Inventory doesn't put itself on the shelves by saying sorry. The people around us looked over, and I felt my face burning, but I didn't talk back. I corrected the code, reviewed the entire line again, and wrote down the error in my blue notebook. At lunchtime, everyone went together to a diner down the street. I pulled out some Tupperware with cold food I brought from home and sat at the last table in the break room. Barbara walked by and, seeing me eating while reviewing my notebook, stopped. "Are you going to study during your break? I'm afraid of making another mistake this afternoon." Being careful is good, but if you push yourself too hard, you'll make more mistakes. Eat, rest a little, and then get back to it. I closed the notebook. Barbara noticed my Tupperware: white rice, a piece of leftover chicken, and some tomato slices. "How's the first day? You're slower than the rest." Being slow isn't the worst part. The worst part is hiding your mistakes. After saying that, she walked away without offering any encouragement, but her words took a weight off my shoulders. At night, after bathing Lily and putting her to sleep, I'd spend hours reading software manuals on my phone. I wrote down my errors in red ink and the solutions in blue. There were early mornings where my eyes would just slide shut and my head would drop against the table. Lily, half asleep, would pull on my arm. "Mommy, aren't you sleeping? I'm going to study just a little bit more." But adults don't have to study. If adults don't keep learning, life leaves them behind very fast. Lily didn't totally understand, but she brought me her little pillow and put it against my back. Well, study hard, Mommy. But work wasn't my only worry. I urgently needed to find a school for Lily because Chloe was about to start her student teaching practicum and couldn't stay with her all morning. I found a public pre-K program near our building. They adjusted the price of the after-school care and lunches based on my income. Her teacher was Miss Alice, a plump woman with a voice so soft that children instantly lost their fear of her. On the first day of school, Lily clung to my coat desperately. Mommy, stay here with me until the afternoon. Mommy has to go to work. I won't cry, but just sit right there by the door. I knelt down. I promise you that every single afternoon I will come back for you. You eat here, take your nap, play with the kids. And when you open your eyes, I'll be right here. Daddy also said he'd come on the weekend, and he didn't. I was left speechless. Miss Alice walked over. She didn't tear her out of my arms. She just sat down next to her. Lily, can you help me with something? I have all these markers that are super messy and I don't know how to put them in the box. Lily looked at her, then at me. I intertwined our fingers. Mommy keeps her promises. Lily let go of my coat, very slowly. I turned and walked away fast, knowing that if I looked at her for one more second, I wouldn't have the strength to leave. That afternoon, when I picked her up, Miss Alice showed me a drawing Lily made. It was a little house with a girl inside, and a mother standing at the front door. She told me quietly, "She's adapting, but she keeps looking at the door. I think she's afraid you won't come back." I stroked the paper. Our family has been through a lot of changes lately. Just be on time. Kids trust routines more than long explanations. From that day on, no matter how much work I had, I arrived at the school door exactly on time. And every time she saw me, Lily sprinted out as if she had recovered the greatest treasure in the world. Right as my new life was starting to find a rhythm, David called. I was making dinner, and Lily was coloring. Hearing the ringtone, she asked, "Is that Daddy?" I stepped out into the hallway to answer. "Is something wrong? I wanted to let you know. Melissa and I are getting married at the end of the year." I stayed quiet for a few seconds. "Good luck with that." David seemed surprised. "You're not going to ask me anything? What you do is no longer my business. I just ask that it doesn't affect Lily." He cleared his throat. "Melissa is going to be seeing a lot of Lily from now on. Don't go putting ideas in the kid's head. I have never spoken badly about you in front of her. I'm just giving you a heads up." I hung up the phone. The soup was boiling over on the stove. Lily was still coloring her yellow house, but my hand was freezing cold as I gripped the wooden spoon. That month, David paid the full $600 on the 5th. The next month, it was the 17th, and nothing had arrived. He didn't warn me, nor did he answer my first 2 texts. The following month, the transfer only showed $300, with a note. "I have a lot of wedding expenses. You have the $40K. Be a little understanding." I read that message over and over again. The school lunches, the groceries, and Lily's medicines were supposed to shrink to accommodate the nuptial whims of adults. I didn't call him to scream at him. I took a screenshot of the deposit. I downloaded my monthly bank statement and made a photocopy of the divorce decree. Barbara noticed when I asked to leave an hour early. "Are you going to see your ex-husband? I want to find out exactly how to claim child support without getting into a screaming match." She gave me the number of a social worker at the local family services center. She advised me, "Don't turn your daughter's issues into a schoolyard fight. Get everything in writing." The social worker, Teresa, reviewed my paperwork very calmly. "The asset settlement and the child support are 2 completely different legal matters. You aren't begging your ex for charity. You are demanding he comply with an obligation set by a judge. And, if he keeps depositing less than he owes, what do I do? Keep all the receipts and texts. If he outright refuses to comply, we will file a motion to have his wages garnished. But the most important thing is that you do not let him use guilt or pity to force you to waive your daughter's rights." I stayed silent. Up until that moment, every time I talked to David about money, I felt like a beggar. It turned out that what made me weak wasn't just my lack of money, but my ignorance of my own rights. I'm sure many women after a divorce aren't afraid of poverty, but of those men who use the excuse of what's best for the kids to force them into silence. I was no longer willing to be silent, Because some people only respect the women they once belittled when those women stop bowing their heads. That very night, when Lily fell asleep, I laid all the papers out on the table. I typed a text message and deleted it twice because it sounded too aggressive. The third time, I left only what was strictly necessary. I looked at his name on the screen and hit send. It was the first time since the divorce that I wrote not as the bitter ex-wife, but as the mother defending what belonged to her daughter. The $40,000 corresponds to the agreed division of assets. The $600 a month is your legal obligation to Lily and must be paid before the 5th, as stated in the custody agreement. You are $300 short this month. I ask that you deposit it immediately, and starting next month, comply with the deadlines. If you have a real financial hardship, please notify me in writing. I read the text one last time and placed my phone face down on the table. Not even 2 minutes passed before it started vibrating nonstop. David was calling. I looked at the bed. Lily was asleep, one leg draped over her stuffed animal, murmuring something in her sleep. I stepped out into the hall, closed the door tight, and answered. His voice hit like a whip. What the hell kind of text is this? I already told you what we had to talk about. Over a few miserable bucks, you're acting like I'm stealing my own daughter's money. It's not just a few bucks or a few hundred. The problem is that you send me less money just because you feel like it, without even a heads up. David huffed. You took a massive chunk of change, and now you're counting pennies. I have to pay for a wedding and there are 1,000 expenses. Can't you be a little understanding? I leaned against the cold wall of the hallway, controlling the pitch of my voice. Your wedding is your choice. Lily's school lunches, her daycare, and her pediatrician are not going to wait for you to get married. If she's with you, you also have an obligation to support her. Don't put this all on me. I've never put it all on you. I work, I pay my rent, I take care of Lily every single day. I'm just asking you to fulfill what you signed in front of a judge. There was silence, and when he spoke again, his voice was much colder. So now that you've memorized a couple of laws, you think you're real smart? No, I gripped the phone. I don't think I'm smart. I've just stopped staring at the floor. Suddenly, the other end of the line went dead quiet. If I were the Sarah from before, as soon as he raised his voice, I would have started crying, apologizing, and wondering what I did wrong. But tonight, I had no need to be the good little girl anymore. David muttered furiously. Don't think that just because you have primary custody right now, you can do whatever you want. I have my own house, a nice car, and my paycheck is triple yours. Let's see what happens if I file for joint or full custody. My heart skipped a beat. Even though the social worker had warned me, hearing him threaten to take Lily away froze my blood. I looked through the crack in the door. The tiny shadow of my daughter reflected on the peeling wall. I took a breath and answered, if you want to file for custody, do it legally. I am not going to beg you. David was caught off guard by my calm. Wow, look how brave you've gotten. I might not have a big house, but I'm the one who takes her to the doctor when she has a fever. I'm the one who picks her up on time. I'm the one who takes care of her every day, and I have never put her aside to live my own life. And I also have all the bank statements where you pay late, and the texts where you say you aren't paying your daughter because you have to pay for an open bar. Are you spying on me? I am saving evidence to protect my daughter. He laughed bitterly. Unbelievable. You've been divorced a few months, and you act like a totally different person. I am the same person. It's just that you got used to me never daring to open my mouth. Before I finished the sentence, I heard a woman near the phone. Hand it over. Let me talk to her. David must have had it on speaker, because Melissa's voice came through crystal clear, sweet but poisoned. Hi, Sarah. I think you need to calm down. David hasn't abandoned his daughter. We just have a ton of upfront deposits to pay this month. And in what capacity are you weighing in on his daughter's child support? Melissa hesitated, then let out a nervous giggle. I'm his future wife, and Lily will be coming to our house a lot. I just want things done civilly. Civilized is complying with a court order. Not using catering expenses to take food out of a little girl's mouth. Melissa's tone turned sweeter. Don't be so harsh. $40,000 isn't a small amount. Anyone hearing you would think David left you in ruins. I didn't say he left me in ruins. Then think about Lily's future and don't act like this out of pride. Little girls need their fathers, not just money. I closed my eyes. That's true. Kids need a father. But a father who doesn't just show up when it's convenient or when he has spare time. A father who follows through, who knows what school she goes to, and who doesn't cut his own daughter's money to pay for a wedding reception. There was silence, and I added, "And as for you, if you truly care about Lily's future, I suggest you stop using the excuse of what's best for the kid to force me to swallow her father's irresponsibility." David yelled and grabbed the phone. "All right, that's enough." "Yeah, enough. I'll transfer the $300 before the weekend. And, starting next month, I'll pay by the 5th. But if you keep acting like this, don't come crying when I don't show you any consideration." I looked at the chipped door of my rented room. "You and I are already divorced. I don't need your consideration. I just want you to stop trampling on your daughter's rights." And I hung up. As soon as the screen went black, my knees buckled. I had to lean on the iron railing so I wouldn't fall. My hands were sweating and my heart was racing at 1,000 miles an hour. I wasn't as strong as my voice had made me seem. I was terrified he would try to take the kid away, that my $2,200 paycheck would be an excuse to say I couldn't support her, that one day Lily would be ripped from this apartment because her father lived in a McMansion. But the fear no longer gave me the urge to run and apologize. I saved the date of the call, wrote a summary of the conversation, and took screenshots of the warning texts. The social worker, Teresa, had made it clear. "Anything concerning your daughter, don't keep it in your head. Put it in writing." A little while later, a text from David arrived. "I'll send the rest tomorrow. But don't try to outsmart me. I didn't take the bait." I simply replied, "Noted. I ask that you meet the deadlines from now on." The next morning, I got the bank notification showing the deposit. I stared at the number for a long time, not out of joy for the money itself, but because for the first time, I realized I didn't need to scream and cry for someone to learn to respect my boundaries. Lily came out of the room, rubbing her eyes and dragging her feet. "Mommy, what are you doing standing there?" I put my phone away. "I'm just looking at the sun coming up." The little girl looked out the window at the interior courtyard, watching the early rays of sun timidly peek through. "Mommy, are you coming to pick me up on time today?" "Yes, I promised you." Lily hugged my waist and ran to find her school clothes. I stood at the door a few seconds longer. Last night I felt pain, panic, and tremors. I had learned that being calm doesn't mean you don't have wounds anymore. It means that even if there's a hurricane inside you, you're never again going to let the person who sank you take the wheel of your life. On Monday morning, as soon as I clocked in, I noticed a very tense atmosphere in the office. Phones were ringing off the hook, workers were running back and forth, and the warehouse supervisor was standing in the middle of the aisle with a stack of manifests, his face red with anger. I hadn't even taken my coat off when Samantha called me over. "Sarah, come look at this." On her screen was the order for a massive shipment of appliances sent to a major client in Milwaukee, valued at nearly $500,000. The system code marked the products as premium quality, but when the client opened the pallets, almost a third of the load consisted of defective products previously separated to be returned to the manufacturer. I saw my username at the bottom of the data entry history. My heart dropped. It was impossible. I reviewed that entire batch thoroughly before leaving on Friday. Samantha crossed her arms. "The system says your user modified the code." "What? Does the computer change it by itself?" "I want to see the full edit history." The supervisor walked over, his voice hard. "Sarah, your user was used to change the merchandise status from returned to cleared for shipping. The client is demanding compensation. The payment is frozen, and the trucks are coming back with the load." I felt a chill run through my veins. "I didn't modify that data." Samantha spoke just quietly enough to make it seem like an offhand comment, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "When you're raising a kid alone and coming in without sleep, these things happen. You probably entered the code wrong in the morning and just don't remember." Another admin nodded. "The new hires always get mixed up with the big batches." I turned to Samantha. "You can suspect me, but until this is cleared up, I ask that you don't use my personal situation as an excuse to blame me." Samantha shrugged. "I'm just saying what I think. This is a business, not a rehab center for putting lives back together." That phrase twisted like a knife, but I bit my tongue. If I started arguing right then, They'd just see a hysterical woman trying to save her own skin. Greg walked in from the warehouse floor, looked at the screens, and asked, "Did Sarah prep the batch alone?" The supervisor replied, "She entered the data. Ryan did the inventory count and handed her the manifests." Greg looked at me. "I'm going to alert management to audit the process." I shook my head. "Don't defend me. This is a very serious error. I know that. If you stick your neck out for me, they'll think you're covering for me because we're friends." Greg observed me and nodded. "Okay. If you need anything, ask me. I'll stay out of the audit." Barbara called me into her office. An incident report and my user history were already laid out on her desk. She didn't scold me, nor did she comfort me. "Are you sure you didn't modify the data?" "Absolutely sure. But the login is yours. Since the company hasn't concluded the investigation yet, I am asking for a window until tomorrow afternoon to review everything. If I can't find another explanation, I will accept my termination, and the incident report will have my name on it." I looked at the paper on the desk. In the past, a mistake like this would have crushed me into a depression. Now, it could cost me my job, my salary, a fine, or even land me in court for fraud. I want to request access to the building's keycard entry logs and the hallway security cameras. Barbara looked up. "What do you expect to find?" The exact moment the system was edited. If I wasn't in the office at that time, someone else used my login. She leaned back in her chair. "Agreed. But if it turns out someone stole your password because you were the one who left it written on a post-it, the final responsibility is still yours. I'll assume my part of the blame if there is any, but I will not take the fall for what I didn't do." That afternoon, I barely peeled my eyes away from the monitor. The system log indicated the data was changed at 8:16 p.m. on Friday. I remembered perfectly well that I left early that day to pick Lily up from after-school care because she had a pediatrician appointment for strep throat. But my memory didn't count as proof. I asked security for the logs. My keycard registered my exit at 5:42 p.m. and never registered another entry. Samantha, looking over my shoulder, lowered her tone slightly. "Maybe you logged in from home. The warehouse system is an intranet. You can't access it remotely. Then who has your password?" That question left me petrified. On my first day, the temporary password they gave me had uppercase, lowercase, and numbers. It was impossible to memorize, so I had jotted it down in the corner of my blue notebook. I changed it shortly after, but I wasn't sure if the last time I changed it was before or after what happened on Friday. I opened my notebook and checked. The corner of the page had been ripped off. Ryan's face popped into my head. He was the warehouse guy who brought me the manifests. That day, I had gotten up to go to the copier for a few minutes and left my notebook open on the desk. And coincidentally, Ryan was the one in charge of loading that exact shipment. I looked for him in the packing area. Ryan was signing some sheets. When he saw me, he forced a smile. "What's up, Sarah? Did you come back to the office on Friday night?" His smile tightened. "No way. I left mid-afternoon. Are you sure?" "Yeah, of course. Why are you asking weird questions?" I didn't want to confront him right there. An innocent person would have gotten angry. A guilty person might play the victim. I needed bulletproof evidence. I checked the hallway camera. Sure enough, at 7:58 p.m., Ryan appeared walking into the office area through a secondary warehouse door. He was inside for almost half an hour, and then came out holding papers. I watched it twice. There wasn't a single administrative employee working at that time. The next morning, I showed up at Barbara's office with everything. Network logs, access records, security camera screenshots, shift schedules, and the photo of the torn page from my notebook. Barbara looked it all over. "Can you prove Ryan is the one who stole your password?" "I don't have direct proof of him sitting at my computer, but he was in the office area at the exact time the system was modified. He was in charge of that batch, and he also lied to my face, saying he left mid-afternoon. Management called Ryan in. At first, he kept denying everything. I just went back to look for some manifests I forgot. I have no idea what her password is." The IT guy brought in the server report. The changes were made from Terminal 3, which was my workstation. Ryan swallowed hard. Barbara put the camera photos on the desk. "You went into the offices near 8 p.m. and you told her you left mid-afternoon. Why did you lie?" "I was afraid I'd get fired." I looked him straight in the eyes. "That day, You stood right behind me while my notebook was open with my password written down. Now the page is torn out. Care to explain? Ryan slammed his hand on the desk. Don't pin this on me. You messed up and now you want to use me as a scapegoat. Greg was watching from the back of the room without saying a peep, keeping his promise. Just then, the warehouse manager walked in with a new report. 3 of the premium pallets are missing from the loading dock, and in their place on the trucks are 3 pallets of defective returns. And according to the dock cameras, Ryan, you were the one who moved those pallets on Friday right before close, without any supervisor's order. Ryan went totally pale. After an hour of cornering him, Ryan dropped his head and confessed. He was in cahoots with someone on the outside to swap the new appliances for the defective ones and resell the good ones. He used my login to alter the system data, convinced that if anyone noticed, I'd take the fall because I was the new girl on probation. Listening to him, I felt a mix of rage and terror. A miserable scrap of paper, a moment of carelessness on my part, almost became the perfect weapon to push me right back to the bottom of the abyss. The company drew up an immediate disciplinary termination for Ryan. They sealed the server records and forwarded the case to the Joliet police for attempted grand theft. I also had to sign a minor written warning for violating the password security policy. I signed it without hesitation. I own up to my mistakes, but I refuse to swallow other people's crimes. When I walked out of the office, Samantha was waiting for me in the hallway. She looked away for a few seconds and said, I apologize. I was wrong. I stayed quiet, and she continued. When I saw it was your login, I assumed it was you. And on top of that, I brought up your daughter. I crossed a major line. I closed my notebook. Don't worry about it. I used to look in the mirror thinking that because I was a stay-at-home mom for years, I was useless. Thank goodness numbers and cameras don't have prejudices. Samantha bit her lip and gave a slight nod. That afternoon, I left work when the warehouse floodlights were already turning on. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the girl Greg recommended, or the divorced woman begging for a paycheck. I was a professional who had uncovered the truth, cleared her name, and owned her mistakes. When you get backed into a corner, it isn't so you surrender. It's so you discover that your legs are much stronger than you thought. 3 days after the Ryan incident, Barbara called me to her office. I went in with a knot in my stomach. Even though it was clear I didn't participate in the theft, I was still on probation, and my carelessness with the password was real. They could perfectly well fire me just to avoid liabilities. Barbara slid a few pages across the desk. Read this over and sign at the bottom. I looked at the title of the document and almost felt dizzy. Permanent employment contract. Really, Barbara? Yes. Management decided to end your probationary period early. Your base salary will be $2,600 net a month, plus a meal stipend. I stood there petrified. Barbara looked up. Does that seem too low to you? No, I'm just so happy I don't know what to say. Well, don't thank me. If the company makes you permanent, it's because you have value. This isn't a charity. Her words still sounded cold, but to me, it was the greatest validation I had received in years. I picked up the pen and read every clause. My first strokes trembled a bit, but the signature came out firm. Letting go of the pen, I felt like I was signing a new agreement with myself. No more relying on the goodwill of others. I walked out to the hall and called Chloe. I'm ordering dinner for all of us tonight. They made me permanent! Chloe screamed with joy over the phone. Seriously? Then I get to pick. I want sushi. I started laughing. My celebration budget is about $20. Smartass. I'll treat you to pizza, some garlic knots, and if you want, some ice cream for dessert. What matters is celebrating. That night, I bought food from the local pizzeria down the street. Connie brought a bottle of ginger ale, and Chloe bought fruit. Lily was sitting in the middle of the room wearing a paper crown she made at school. Mommy, are you the boss now? No, honey, Mommy is permanent now. What's permanent? Chloe answered very seriously. It means your mommy works so well that they never want her to leave. I gave Chloe a light tap on the head so she wouldn't exaggerate. Lily looked at me very seriously. So, they aren't going to kick you out anymore? Her question made the laughter die down for a moment. I pulled Lily onto my lap. Mommy has to keep working hard. But things are going to be easier for us now. Lily gave me a loud kiss. I like that Mommy is permanent. That night, When everyone left, I opened my ledger again. I reviewed the expenses for rent, electricity, water, Lily's lunch program, what I paid Chloe for watching her, the month's groceries, the medicine. I opened another online account in my name and titled it Lily's Piggy Bank. Every month, even if it was just $30 or $40, I would transfer it there. I deposited David's child support into a completely separate account so I'd have a clear bank statement if we ever went to court, and I didn't touch it unless it was absolutely necessary. The $40,000 from my divorce settlement remained intact. I only withdrew a little to pay for Lily's health insurance and some school supplies. I didn't want to get to the extreme of skimping on my daughter's needs, but I also wasn't going to let that money become a bottomless pit that anyone could dip their hands into. Life settled down. In the mornings, I took Lily to school, and in the afternoons, I sometimes stayed with Samantha doing inventory balancing. We weren't best friends, but we helped each other out. When she saw I was stuck on an Excel spreadsheet, she'd lean over and say, "Sarah, look at column H. Your data is shifting there, not in the product code." And I'd thank her. In the afternoon, I'd go pick up Lily, and she no longer waited for me anxiously at the door. Her face just lit up from ear to ear. We ate dinner together, sometimes fish, sometimes just simple lentils. She always saved me the best piece of bread or chicken. "Here, Mommy. So you aren't tired from working." And I'd give it back to her. "You eat it. You have to grow up big and strong." She would put her hands on her chin and say very seriously, "When I grow up and work, I'll buy the food for you." And I'd laugh. "You just grow up to be a good person. We'll see who buys the food then." Not everything was perfect. There were nights when Lily coughed so much I spent the early hours awake, holding her against my chest. But those were normal worries. Not the anxiety of feeling suffocated, because my life depended on whatever crumbs someone else wanted to give me. Everything was going smoothly until an afternoon in mid-November. I was inputting some shipping manifests when my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was my mother. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Since I left my hometown, my mother had barely called a couple of times, mostly to ask about the kid, or to guilt-trip me for not visiting. She never asked how I was living. I asked for permission to step out into the hall. "What's wrong, Mom?" On the other side, I only heard ragged breathing, and then my mother's crying. "Sarah, your dad fell in the bathroom. The doctors at the hospital said it was a mild stroke. Come here right now. If you don't come, who else can I ask for help?" Her last sentence had that usual hint of reproach, but this time, I didn't care. I remembered my dad on the porch saying quietly, "If anything happens to you two, this house won't turn its back on you." I walked into Barbara's office and told her. She looked at my schedule. "Hand your manifests over to Samantha. You get 2 days of leave for the hospitalization of a family member. If you need more, let us know. Ask for the medical notes. And listen, stroke rehab is a heavy lift. Don't trust small-town healers or miracle cures." I thanked her, grabbed my things, and ran to the school to get Lily. On the way, I called Chloe. "Chloe, my dad is in the hospital. I have to go to my hometown for an emergency. Can you stay with Lily tonight?" "Yeah, of course. I don't have classes tomorrow morning. I'll tell her teacher." When Lily heard Grandpa was sick, she started kicking her legs. "I want to go see Grandpa." I hugged her tight. "You stay with Chloe. Be good. When Grandpa feels better, I'll take you to see him." "Is Grandpa going to die?" I got scared. "Don't say that. He's sick, and the doctors are making him better." Lily bit her lip and ran to pull her latest drawing out of her backpack. "Give this to him so he gets better faster." I put it in my purse, kissed her, and rushed to the Greyhound station to catch a bus back to my hometown. When I arrived at the county hospital, it was already night. My mother was huddled in a plastic chair, her eyes swollen and her hair a mess. Seeing me, she sprang up like a coiled spring. "Why did you take so long?" I ignored the accusation. "What floor is he on? What exactly did the doctors say?" I walked into the room. My dad was in the bed, the corner of his mouth slightly drooping, and his left arm lying lifeless on the sheets. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. I walked over and grabbed his right hand. "I'm here, Dad." He tried to speak, but only inarticulate sounds came out. "S. Sarah." I leaned down and let my tears fall on his thin hand. Don't talk, Dad. Just rest. I went to admissions to leave my info. I went downstairs to buy adult diapers, wipes, and some pureed food. Ethan, my brother, hadn't shown up at all. My mother said he was at his trade school practicum and wasn't answering his phone. Around midnight, I went out to the hall to get some water and saw my mother talking on the phone at the bottom of the stairwell. She was speaking very quietly, but very fast. Your sister is already here. You just relax. She has $40,000 in the bank. This time we'll tell her to pull money out to help all of us. She can't be so selfish as to keep it all for herself and her kid while we drown. I stood rooted in the middle of the hallway, illuminated by the cold fluorescent lights, holding an unopened bottle of water. My dad was in a bed, unable to move his arm. And the only thing my mother was thinking about wasn't just how to pay for his treatments, but how to use my money to plug up her spoiled son's mistakes. I felt my blood run cold, but I didn't go confront her. I went back to the room, left the water on the nightstand, and tucked my dad in. He looked at me with exhaustion. Are you thirsty? I fed him small spoonfuls of water, trying to keep my hands from shaking. At 1 a.m., the doctor told us he was stabilized. The stroke had been mild, but he needed strong medication and to start physical therapy soon. The costs weren't the absolute ruin my mother had painted them to be. I got the pharmacy receipts, paid the deductible for the bed, and went back to the hall. My mother had already returned. Ethan is here. He says he's on his way up. Dad is in the hospital and he's showing up at this hour? What is he so busy with? I looked straight at my mother. What's he busy with that makes you think you need my savings? My mother jumped. You heard us? I heard enough to know you want my money. She immediately changed her tone. Not to take anything. I wanted to ask for a loan. Your father is hospitalized. Your brother is going through a rough patch. Your family. Are you just going to sit back and do nothing? How much money do you need? She thought I was caving, so she stepped closer, lowering her voice. About $10,000. I stared at her fixedly. She looked away. $10,000? The doctor just told me Dad's treatment is mostly covered by Medicare. What is the other $10,000 for? She started stammering. For private rehab, for things around the house, for Ethan's tuition. She listed so many things she ran out of breath, and finally got defensive. We are a family. You sound like an IRS auditor. It's just money. That money is for Lily's future. I have a right to ask. At that exact moment, Ethan appeared. He was wearing a pulled-down baseball cap, a dirty hoodie, and his eyes were bloodshot. Seeing me, he didn't ask how Dad was. He walked straight up to my mother, grabbed her arm, and pulled her into a corner. I stepped in his way. Let's talk right here in the open. How much money do you owe? Ethan glared at me with contempt. Who do you think you are? You show up and start giving orders? Are you using Dad's illness to bleed me dry? Of course I'm asking. He looked at my mother. Did you tell her? My mother grumbled. Keep your mouth shut and go see your father. I owe a few grand. If you lend it to me, I'll pay it back when I finish my practicum. How much? $5,500. There was silence. $5,500 for what? My mother tried to step in. He took out a payday loan to pay for some trade school stuff. And the interest is drowning him. Ethan huffed. Mom, don't tell her everything. I shot him a glare. What else is there? Eventually, by scraping at it, the whole truth came out. He had taken out payday loans through mobile apps to buy a new iPhone. Then he used the leftover money to gamble online on DraftKings. When he lost, he took out another loan to cover the first one, and ended up in the hands of loan sharks who were charging him insane interest. On top of those $5,500, my mother wanted me to give her another $2,000 to buy Ethan a decent used car, because she said driving to his practicum in my dad's old beater embarrassed him in front of his classmates. I listened to all of it and felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up. So, out of the $10,000, the actual money Dad needs to adapt his room and pay a private physical therapist is barely anything. The rest is to pay off your son's gambling debts and buy him a new car. My mother acted offended. He's your little brother. If he gets a good job down the line, he'll be able to help all of us. I looked at the woman who had raised me, a woman who had always taught me to cater to a husband, but deep in her soul, had always preferred her male child. Dad has been in that bed since noon. The one who paid the admission deposit, the one who stayed here and talked to the doctor, was me. That kid you call your pillar and your pride shows up at 1 a.m. loaded with debt. My mother turned red with anger. Don't go giving yourself medals over a few bucks. I gave birth to you and I raised you. If there are problems in this house, you have to pitch in. I will pitch in my part. I pulled out the folder with the hospital receipts. The pharmacy, the walker, and Dad's private rehab sessions. I'll split them 50-50 with you. The rest of the problem, you and your son can figure out. And if Dad really needs an at-home physical therapist next month, we will recalculate it then. Ethan looked up sharply. Easy for you to say. The debt is mine. But they are looking for me. How do you expect me to get out of this if you don't help me? And when you took out the loan to gamble, did you ask if I would be able to get you out of it? He kicked the hallway wall. It was a mistake. You have $40,000. If you pull out $5,000, you bail me out. You aren't going to go broke. As soon as I'm working, I'll pay you back. And how many days have you actually worked in your life? I'm not working yet because I need a car to get to the job sites. Dad's old car starts up perfectly. Yeah, it starts, but it looks like I drove out of a junkyard. My friends have awesome cars. I looked at him, not even realizing I was about to explode. My dad was in a hospital with half his body paralyzed, and Ethan was more worried about looking bad in front of his drinking buddies. My mother, as always, jumped in to protect him. He's young. Everyone does stupid things at his age. Family is here to help. If you don't save his ass, who's going to do it? I answered slowly. When someone has a cut on their hand, you heal them. But when someone cuts themselves on purpose to get attention, you cannot allow them to keep using the family as a crying towel. My mother stood up. You have money, and you're going to let them break your brother's legs? What kind of sister are you? I stood up too. My heart was pounding, but my voice wasn't shaking anymore. I am Ethan's older sister, but I am also Lily's mother. If I spend all my savings paying for this brat's mistakes, and tomorrow my daughter gets seriously sick, who am I going to ask for money? My mother pointed a finger at me. Ever since you got divorced, you're you only think about your daughter and your money. Only you. That sentence caught in my throat, but I didn't take a single step back. I gave my best years to my ex-husband because I thought we were a family. And then I came back with my daughter to your house because I thought my own blood would take me in unconditionally. And in both places, I almost lost everything because people felt entitled to take the little I have. Ethan let out a sarcastic laugh. Don't think you're so smart. You got cheated on and dumped, too. What are you clinging to that money for? Just go find another sucker to support you. The hospital hallway fell completely silent. I walked right up to him and slapped him across the face. The sound wasn't very loud, but it was enough to leave him petrified. My mother covered her mouth in horror. The palm of my hand was burning. I had never laid a finger on my brother. Since we were kids, even if he ripped up my notes or insulted me, my mother always said, "You're the oldest. You have to give in." But today, I wasn't going to give up a single millimeter of my dignity. I looked Ethan straight in the eyes. Don't you ever use my misfortunes to justify how useless you are? I might be divorced, but that doesn't give you the right to look down on me. I'm keeping my money for Lily because I want to sleep peacefully at night, not so you can throw it away on DraftKings. Ethan touched his face and looked at my mother. You remember this. And you, Mom, remember that my dad is in there, and this deadbeat only came to ask you for cash. I heard the doorknob of the hospital room turn slightly. I turned and saw my dad peeking out. Tears were falling down the right side of his face. His healthy arm lifted shakily toward me. I walked in quickly and grabbed his hand. Dad, it's okay. I'll take care of your medical expenses. You just focus on getting better. He tried to speak. Sarah. But I shook my head. Don't speak, Dad. But his hand gripped mine, and in his eyes, I saw for the first time the shame of a father who knew the damage they were doing to me, but who never had the guts to put a stop to his wife. I don't know if I forgave him in that moment. I just knew he needed me. Ethan was going to have to wise up on his own. The next morning, I spoke with the doctors, filled out the discharge paperwork and admissions, and set up a physical therapy schedule. I gave my mother enough cash for the hospital bills and demanded she keep the receipt for any extra things she bought. My mother took the bills with a face of stone. Ethan didn't even bring up the money in front of me. He sat in the hallway chairs, staring at his phone as if looking for his next victim. That afternoon, I caught the bus back to Joliet. I had work the next day, and Lily was waiting for me. Before I left, I didn't realize that when my mother went down to the cafeteria, Ethan had taken her phone to dig through our text messages. He took a photo of the exact address of my apartment in Joliet that I had sent her weeks ago, and of my live location. Unable to squeeze money out of me by crying, he was going to try to use fear right at my front door to force me to pay his debts. 3 weeks after that, life seemed quiet again. My dad was doing his daily exercises. He was starting to move his fingers, and Ethan had dropped off the radar. He never apologized, nor did he mention the debt again. One Friday evening, I had just finished feeding Lily dinner because she had a little cold. We were in our small room. She was coloring at the little low table. Suddenly, 3 brutal bangs shook the metal door. Bam. 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 Lily jumped so hard her marker went flying. A gruff male voice yelled from the hallway. "Sarah Jenkins, are you in there?" I went to the door, but I kept the deadbolt locked. "Who is it?" "Your brother. He owes us a lot of cash. He said the rich girl of the family, his little sister, has 40 grand, and that you're going to pay for him. Open the door if you don't want problems. I don't owe you anything and I didn't co-sign for anyone. Go find the guy who took out the loan." The man hit the door again, this time with a tire iron. "Don't screw with us. If you don't pay us, your little brother isn't going to be walking anymore. Open it now." The metallic crash terrified Lily. She crawled under the table and covered her ears. "Mommy, are they going to take us?" I turned and saw my daughter pale as a ghost. All the rage I felt instantly turned into a block of ice. I knelt down to her level. "Nobody is going to take us. I know you're scared. We're going to go out the back window into Connie's room." The back window opened onto the courtyard where the clotheslines were. I picked Lily up and sneaked into Connie's apartment. Chloe, who was there studying, grabbed the little girl instantly. I told Chloe, "Lock the door, and no matter what happens, do not let Lily go out." Lily grabbed my shirt. "Mommy, don't leave. I'm right next door, sweetie. I promise I'm not going anywhere." Connie grabbed my arm. "Call 911. Don't go out there fighting those animals." I dialed 911, gave my exact address, told them how many there were, that they were armed, and that they were threatening me. Then I turned on the voice recorder on my phone. I pressed myself against the door. "What are your names? Who gave you this address?" One of them let out a dirty laugh. "You don't care about our names. If you want to sleep tonight, tell Ethan to bring us the cash. I repeat, I am not his guarantor, and I am recording all of your threats." The guy kicked the door. "You think calling the cops is going to scare us?" At that moment, Connie opened the door to her main apartment. She planted herself in the middle of the hallway with a broom in her hand. "All right, you cheap thugs. Go collect from the guy who actually owes you." "Shut up, old lady. This has nothing to do with you." Connie leaned the broom handle on the floor. "I'm the landlord of this building, and if you're bashing in my doors, of course it has to do with me. You come here acting all tough with a single woman and a little kid? Have you no shame?" Several neighbors opened their doors, and someone started recording with their phone. The 2 thugs dialed back their attitude, but they stood their ground blocking the exit. 10 minutes later, 2 Joliet police cruisers pulled up. They identified them and took all of us to the station to take statements. There, I provided the audio recording, showed the text messages, and proved that I had no connection to the debtors or to Ethan. The 2 thugs stated that Ethan gave them my address, saying, "If I take too long to pay, go to this house. She's my older sister, and she will never let me drown." I felt such disgust for my own brother. I almost threw up right there. I called my mother. "Get on a train, get a taxi, whatever, and bring Ethan to the Joliet Police Department right now." "What's wrong, honey?" 10, 10, 10, 10. "Your son's friends came to bash my door in with a tire iron in front of your granddaughter. Come now." 2 hours later, they showed up. Ethan walked in, hunched over with his hood up, and my mother was trailing behind him, white as a sheet. As soon as she saw me, my mother tried to grab my arm. Honey, let's not make things bigger than they are. Drop the charges against your brother. I pulled away sharply. Go into the waiting room first and look at Lily. Chloe had brought Lily. The little girl was still clutching her stuffed bunny to her chest, her eyes puffy from crying. When she saw her grandmother, instead of running to her, she hid behind Chloe. My mother knelt down. Lily, come to Grandma. Lily shook her head and said in a raspy voice, Grandma, don't let the bad men take my mommy. My mother froze. Lily kept crying softly. Uncle Ethan told the men Mommy had money and they came to hit the door. Are they going to take Mommy, Grandma? My mother looked at Ethan. For the first time, she was seeing live and in HD the result of spoiling a son, until he turned into a monster who put his own niece in danger. She walked up to Ethan and slapped him so hard it echoed through the entire waiting room. Look at her! Look at your niece! You are so shameless you use your family as human shields to get out of your own mistakes. Ethan covered his face. What are you doing, Mom? What I should have done 20 years ago, Ethan mumbled. I just told them she had money so they'd give me more time. So they'd give you time. And you give them her address so they can go scare a little girl. Ethan didn't dare say another word. My mother turned to me. Her lips were trembling. Sarah, please, out of compassion, pay the debt for them this one time so they leave us alone. And then I will find him a job so he can pay you back. I stared at her for a long minute. After watching Lily tremble with fear, you are still asking me to save his ass? She choked up. I answered slowly, enunciating every syllable. I am not putting one single cent toward Ethan's debt. He has to give the police the info on the apps he used and eat the consequences. An officer forced him to sign a document promising never to use my personal data or my address to apply for loans again. They also explained to Ethan that he was the sole, civilly responsible party for his debts. Ethan was sweating cold. He no longer had that cocky attitude, because he knew Mom wasn't going to save him anymore. My mother demanded that on Monday he show up to work as an apprentice at her friend's HVAC shop in their town, sell his phone and his car, and figure it out however he could. Ethan looked at me, cowed. Sarah, I'm sorry. I met his gaze. Are you sorry for scaring Lily, or are you sorry because the cops got called? He dropped his head. Both. I don't believe you. When you actually start working, apologize without hiding behind Mom's skirt, and leave us all in peace. Then I'll listen to you. We left the police station at night. Lily clung to my arm like a koala, and my mother walked behind us in silence. When we got back to the apartment, Connie brought us some chicken noodle soup. Lily ate 2 spoonfuls and asked again if they were going to take me to jail. I had to repeat it 10 times. No, Mommy is staying with you. My mother sat in the only empty plastic chair, looking at the dents on the door from the blows, and at her granddaughter sleeping gripped to my sweater. That night, my mother didn't go back to her town. She asked to sleep on the floor of my room. For the first time, this woman who thought I lived like a queen because I had a $40,000 bank account was going to sleep in a cramped room with no AC at 90 degrees, paid for with every cent of my sweat. That night, she sat in the chair next to the door for a long time. We only turned on a warm, dim light. The fan buzzed but didn't cool anything down. I stroked Lily's hair. She would jump in her sleep every now and then, reaching out to feel my neck to know if I was still there. My mother saw it all. She saw the old crock-pot in the corner, Lily's clean school clothes on hangers, and the corkboard behind the door where I pinned every single grocery receipt. She asked softly, "Do you track all this every month?" "Mom, if you don't track it, the money slips away without you noticing. Does your paycheck cover it?" "It covers it. If there are no surprise expenses, I don't have to touch the savings account." Hearing me say that, my mother paused, afraid that mentioning the word savings would make me shut the door in her face again. I spoke first. "I still have it saved, but I don't live off it. Mom, I work for our day-to-day. I have that money for when the kid goes to college, if she gets really sick, or in case one day we can put a down payment on a small apartment." My mother looked at her own calloused hands. "I thought if you had that money saved, you wouldn't have to struggle." I looked around at the narrow walls that were barely bigger than our kitchen back home. "Mom, those dollars in the bank don't stop me from having to juggle bills to make ends meet. They don't take care of my daughter when she gets a fever at 3 a.m. And they certainly don't stop people from looking at me like some poor divorced woman. They just give me the security of not ending up under a bridge, but they don't help me live day to day." My mother stayed quiet. I laid Lily down and pulled the blanket up to her waist. My mother tried to help me cover her, but Lily jumped, pulling her little hand away in fear. I'm here. It's okay. Until the girl fell back asleep, my mother just stared at her with glassy eyes. The poor thing got so scared today. It's not just today, Mom. Since her dad started disappearing, she asked me daily if I was going to leave, too. Then we went back to your house, and she heard me say we were crashing there. I didn't finish the sentence. My mother understood perfectly. She stepped out into the narrow hallway of the courtyard to get some fresh air. She sat on the floor, leaning her back against the wall. Between us, there was only a silence that was much more painful than any screaming match. The neighbors' sheets flapped in the wind. In a distant room, a mother could be heard singing to a baby, and trucks continued rolling down the avenue. My mother broke the ice. When you called saying you were separating, I was completely devastated. Because you were worried about what people would say. She shook her head gently. I was afraid. Afraid that you'd come back with a little kid and spend the rest of your life depending on us. Afraid that Ethan would get a bad example. Afraid that he, as a bachelor, wouldn't find anyone because he had a divorced sister at home. I let out a laugh, but it sounded hollow. You were afraid of a lot of things, but you weren't afraid of my pain. That sentence made her drop her head completely. I used to think that when you get married, your family becomes your husband, and if there are problems, you put up with them. When your dad and I were tight on money, and he was acting impossible, I never thought about running off to my parents' house. But Dad never brought another woman into your bed. Silence fell. I didn't come back home out of some childish tantrum. I put up with it alone for a very long time. All I wanted when I came back was for you to ask me, "Honey, how are you doing?" Not for you to ask me for money. Tears began to slide down my mother's face. I was wrong. 2 very short words. But I had been waiting years to hear them ever since that day behind the kitchen wall. She wiped her tears with the sleeve of her blouse. I always believed the son is the one who carries the family. I covered everything up for Ethan since he was little, thinking that one day he would take care of us. And it turns out that when your dad falls down, the one who runs to the hospital is you, and when he screws up, the first door they come banging on is yours. I looked at her. You don't need to hate Ethan to love me, Mom. I know. But don't think that just because I slapped him, everything is magically going to change. Ethan is the way he is because he always knew there'd be someone behind him to clean up his mess. She nodded her head, crying silently. I took a deep breath. I can try not to be so angry with you, but to trust you again, I need time. She swallowed hard. I'm not asking you to forget everything, sweetie. I'm just asking you to let me try to fix it. I didn't hug her. There are wounds so deep they aren't healed by a single night's hug. The only thing I did was bring her a blanket so she wouldn't get cold on the floor. The next morning, she woke up very early to warm up milk and make hot cocoa with Maria cookies. She opened the pantry, and seeing there was barely anything left, pulled cash from her purse to go down to the grocery store. I stopped her. Leave it. I'll go down. She shook her head. No, today I'm making breakfast for my granddaughter. For the first time in a long time, she didn't call her the kid or that little girl. I noticed that tiny detail perfectly. When Lily woke up and saw her in the room, she hid behind my leg. My mother didn't force her to give her a kiss. She just placed the warm bowl on the table. Eat up if you're hungry. I'll stand way over here. Lily watched her for a long time and asked in a low voice, Are you going to let the bad men take my mommy? My mother's eyes welled up. No, I've made a lot of mistakes. From now on, Grandma won't let anyone scare you guys ever again. Lily didn't go running to hug her, but she sat in the chair and started dunking the cookies in her cup. For me, that was already a huge step. That afternoon, my mother headed back to her town. Before leaving, she placed a bag in my hand with eggs from a neighbor's farm and tomatoes from her garden. Can I come up to see Lily some weekend? Call me before you come, Mom. I will. I'll let you know. I didn't promise her everything would go back to the way it was. When a relationship breaks on such a profound level, it doesn't just glue back together like a broken mug. You can only build a new way of living together with clear boundaries, so you don't keep hurting each other. 2 days later, David came to pick up Lily according to the visitation schedule. The little girl didn't want to go, but I told her she had to go with her dad for a few hours and then she'd come back home. If you need anything, tell me. David was waiting at the door and was surprised to see my mother walking out with her bags. You're visiting? My mother replied very dryly. Yes. Take the girl and don't take your eyes off her. David felt awkward because of her distant tone, but he kept quiet. That same evening, they brought Lily back almost an hour late. She got out of the car with swollen eyes. She refused to say goodbye to David and threw herself into my arms. What's wrong, my love? She just kept repeating, I want to go inside. I looked at David and noticed he had been crying. What happened? Just kids throwing tantrums. Melissa started recording a couple of videos for Instagram. Lily didn't want to go near her and started crying. My blood boiled. Some family. David wrinkled his nose. Don't be so sensitive. Melissa is going to be my wife. The kid has to get used to it. I took Lily to our room without asking for further explanations. A while later, Chloe sent me some screenshots from her phone. On Melissa's Instagram stories, there was a video showing only half of Lily's face as she cried desperately, and underneath, there was a caption, "It's a shame there are kids whose adults instill baseless hatred and fear in them to turn them against their own parents. Sometimes, love just has to be patient." I was paralyzed with rage. Melissa didn't mention me by name, but anyone who knew the story knew who she was talking about. She was using my daughter's tears as fake proof to play the role of the understanding stepmother. I didn't call to insult her. I saved the screenshots with the time and date, the link to the video, and asked Chloe to screen record it with another phone just in case they deleted it and claimed it was a lie. I sent a direct message to Melissa. Delete the video featuring my daughter's image and audio of her crying immediately. You have no right to use minors to drop hints or polish your public image. She read it and didn't reply. I sent another text to David. A mental cease and desist. The visitation schedule and pickup locations must be strictly followed, always with advance notice. Melissa is strictly prohibited from posting images, audio, or video of Lily on social media without my express written consent. David called me instantly. Jesus, you're crossing a line. I'm just defending my rights as a father. You can't even see her whole face. Just because you can't see her whole face doesn't mean people won't recognize her. And it certainly doesn't give your fiancé the right to use the kid crying as a prop for her little movies. You always think everyone is out to get you. I looked at Lily huddled in her corner, terrified. I'm not forbidding you from being a father. What I am forbidding is you using my daughter in your disgusting game of appearances. David fell silent. I pronounced every word with disgust. That video needs to be deleted tonight. If anything like this happens again, I will file a motion to modify the visitation agreement based on the psychological well-being of the minor. 10 minutes later, Melissa's Instagram video had disappeared. But that same night, when someone yelled out on the street near our ground floor window, Lily jumped, knocked a glass of water on the floor, and clung to me in absolute terror. Videos can be deleted from the internet in seconds, but the fear an adult plants in a child's mind is almost impossible to erase. After the video incident, Lily stopped asking when it was time to go with her dad. When the phone rang and she knew it was David, she kept coloring as if she hadn't heard it. I asked Miss Alice to keep an eye on her. She told me that in class, she played, ate well, and took her naps. But if she heard a man raise his voice nearby, she'd get completely spooked. Kids don't know how to tell you everything that scares them, Sarah. Sometimes they just try to hide, or they grip their mothers tighter. And we adults think they've forgotten about it in 2 days. Hearing that left my chest tight. I had managed to force that woman to take down the video, but I couldn't issue an order to turn off the terror inside my daughter's head. Greg would drop by every now and then, but always keeping his distance. Sometimes he brought his tools to fix a squeaky closet door. Other times he'd bring down a couple of his niece's storybooks for Lily. He never did it without asking me first. Except once. At the end of the month, the school director notified us that they were going to charge the after-school program fee for the entire quarter up front. My used scooter had just broken down, and Lily needed expensive cough syrup. I was going to talk to the school to see if I could split the payment. The next morning, Miss Alice stopped me at the door. Sarah, Lily's quarterly fee has already been paid. By who? Greg said he was here on behalf of the family. That afternoon, I asked Greg to meet me for coffee near the warehouse. As soon as he sat down, he apologized. Look, don't be mad. I just fronted it to help you out. You can pay me back whenever it's better for you. I opened my banking app and sent a Zelle transfer instantly. It's back in your account. Greg looked at his phone and his smile vanished. Sarah, I didn't ask you to. It's not about whether you asked or not. You went to her school, presented yourself as her family, and paid her tuition without consulting me. I knew you were tight on cash. I just wanted to help. I know you did it with the best intentions in the world. But when you do that, it makes me feel like someone is grabbing the steering wheel of my life again. My ex-husband thought that because he brought home the money, he owned the house. My mother thought that because she gave birth to me, my money was hers. I don't want someone as good as you to fall into that same trap just to help me. Greg looked down at his coffee cup. I was worried you were drowning in bills. If I'm drowning, I will tell you. If you want to know what I need, you ask me. But do not throw me a life preserver if I haven't asked for it. He raised his head, sighed, and looked me in the eyes. I'm sorry. I thought if I did it without telling you, I'd spare you the awkwardness of having to ask. You're right. My help just turned into another pressure on you. I get it. I answered much softer. I don't want you to come rescue me. I need someone who respects me enough to stand beside me. From that day on, he kept his word. If the bookshelf was wobbly, he sent a text. Want me to come look at it? If the company gave us chocolates for Christmas, he'd ask if he could bring a couple for Lily. Lily called him Uncle Greg. One day, Chloe was joking with the little girl and blurted out, Lily, if you love Uncle Greg so much, just call him Dad and that's it. The little girl crossed her arms. My dad is Daddy David. Uncle Greg is Uncle Greg. I was afraid Greg would take it poorly. But he just patted her head. That's right. Peanut. Everything by its name. His attitude, never forcing any title, made me trust him a little bit more. One Friday, during my lunch break, I was reviewing an Excel file with Samantha when my phone rang. It was Miss Alice. Sarah, come quickly. Lily fell down the stairs on the playground. She hit her head. We're in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. She's dizzy, and she threw up. My pen dropped to the floor. My heart leaped into my throat. I bolted. Barbara called an Uber while Samantha trailed behind me with my purse. I spent the whole ride crying and praying, repeating the promise I always made her. Mommy always comes back for you. I arrived at the local ER and found her teacher pale as a sheet, covered in dust, and shaking. The doctor was checking Lily's reflexes in a room. What happened? She was on the ramp, but a father arrived late and started screaming at his kid by the gate. Lily got terrified, tripped, fell face first, and hit the step. Hearing that, I felt like I was going to die right there. Miss Alice grabbed my hand and couldn't stop crying. Forgive me, really. I didn't blame her. It was an accident, and she reacted perfectly. The doctor ordered a CT scan because she had vomited, to rule out severe concussions. She came out of the X-ray room looking tiny, with a bandage on her forehead. I ran to grab her freezing little hand. Mommy's right here. I'm sorry. I fell by accident. It's okay, my life. It's not your fault. It's okay. Greg showed up 15 minutes later at the ER. He didn't bombard me with questions. He took all my paperwork, handled the registration, paid for parking, bought water, and sat in a chair a bit further down. Drink some water. You're shaking. I can't stomach anything right now. I'll leave it here. When you calm down, drink. He stayed there like a shadow. In silence, his simple presence made me feel like I wasn't falling to pieces. David arrived over an hour later, and he didn't bring Melissa. As soon as he walked in, he started raising his voice. What the hell happened to Lily? How does that school take care of my daughter? I'm going to sue them. I stood up, grabbed his arm, and spoke through clenched teeth. Lower your voice, idiot. She's terrified. David stopped dead in his tracks. The results showed it was a minor concussion from the blow. There was no neurological damage, but she had to stay in the pediatric observation unit for 48 hours. She went into the room a bit drowsy from the sedatives. I sat next to the bed stroking her hair, and David stood at the foot of the room with his arms crossed. Greg, seeing David, opted to step outside to grab a coffee and give us privacy. A while later, Lily opened her eyes heavily, turned her head, and saw David on the other side of the room. She started trembling from head to toe. Her bottom lip quivered, and she didn't call him Dad. She reached out her little arm, covered in Band-Aids, desperately searching for my shirt. Mommy. I threw myself over her, wrapping her up. It's okay, honey. Mommy is right here. Lily sobbed with a thread of a voice. I was afraid those men were going to take you. The silence in the hospital was deafening. David stood petrified at the foot of the bed. In that instant, he understood everything. The days he paid late, and what I told him I heard in my hometown. The weekends he canceled at the last second because he went on a getaway with his fiancée. The screaming at my door demanding money. His girlfriend's disgusting video pretending to be the poor victim. All the fear generated by the sum of those actions was now visible. It was crystallized in that 4-year-old girl, terrified of her own shadow. Mommy, don't leave. Lily squeezed so hard her knuckles turned white, until exhaustion finally closed her eyes again. David looked at the floor, turned around, and walked out into the hall. For the first time, he had no arguments left to blame anyone. It wasn't the bad mother. It wasn't the useless teachers. It wasn't a bad day. Certain debts in adult life cannot be settled with money. You pay them when you realize the sheer terror you've etched into the eyes of your own children. The 48 hours in the ward were endless, but Lily started keeping food down, and the dizziness subsided. Still, she jumped if she heard the nurses' metal carts rolling down the pediatric hallway. The neurologist discharged her with advice. Don't expose her to loud noises or stressful situations for a couple of months. Let her rest. My mother, Rose, came from her town as soon as she could catch a bus. She carried a thick homemade chicken noodle soup in a glass Tupperware and 3 brand-new pajamas bought right there. She didn't try to force the situation. She sat in an armchair at a distance and asked timidly, Lily, eat a little of Grandma's soup. It will help you get your strength back, my sweet girl. Lily looked at me, seeking my approval. I nodded slightly, and she took a few spoonfuls. My mother got so emotional she turned around so we wouldn't see her crying, as if she felt total forgiveness had just dropped from the sky. My dad called on FaceTime from home. His recovery was going great, and he was starting to slowly vocalize single words. Cure. You. Lily managed a faint smile on her chapped lips. You get better soon, too. Grandpa Tom. It was her first smile since the fall. I looked out the window at the Chicago skyline and wiped away a secret tear. That afternoon, David called me out of the room into the pediatric hallway. His shirt was completely wrinkled, and he had dark bags under his eyes. Sarah, I'm sorry. I was such an idiot to think that as long as a deposit hit your bank at the end of the month, I was being a father. When she said she was afraid they'd take you away, I couldn't. I realized the constant state of fear I've kept you in. You realized it late. But better late than never. I pulled out a printed paper. These are the new visitation schedules and rules. Exact drop-offs and pickups at a neutral location. You will not take her to sleep in places she doesn't know, or to the houses of recent girlfriends until you talk to me first. And above all, if Melissa posts a single millisecond of my daughter on social media, the agreement is legally voided. If you want me to trust you as a father, the first rule is keeping your word. David read the rules very slowly, nodded, and looked at the floor. Weeks later, I found out he forced Melissa to delete any trace or hint regarding Lily from all her internet accounts, and made it very clear she would have no contact with the child during this initial trauma recovery phase. Melissa's response was the typical, I won. I don't want to get into wars with that hysterical woman. And honestly, I couldn't care less what that woman thought. I hadn't won any contest for who gets to keep a man. I had won the right to remove someone toxic and protect the dignity of my tears and my daughters from becoming a frivolous spectacle. Lily came home on a Tuesday. I found her help with a specialized child psychologist recommended by the school, who had a practice in the suburbs. Lily learned through play how to give shape to her fears, and I learned that children must be listened to with patience. When she told me, Mommy, I feel like going with Daddy, I let her go. I never forced her to go to the park with him if she didn't want to, and I didn't stop her from seeing him when she asked. Healing a child's heart isn't forcibly erasing the person who hurt them from their head. It is building the certainty for that child that she, in herself, is always going to be safe and unconditionally loved. A year later, Barbara called me to the main HR office. The company was opening a massive, robotic logistics facility in Naperville, and they wanted me to be the supervisor of the initial administrative team. I'd like you to lead this new shift, Sarah. The base salary is $3,500 net, plus company dining perks and bonuses. I was excited by the offer, but I was worried about changing apartments, changing neighborhoods, and finding a new school. A promotion is great, but I have to think about all the changes for my daughter. Barbara adjusted her glasses. Sarah, having stability doesn't mean staying stuck in the fear of moving forward. The best stability for a little girl is knowing that wherever she is, her mother is standing tall, and that her mother will always come home. I accepted the offer. That night, I prepared the surprise for Lily. Lily, do you think it would be cool to have a room with a wall just for you to paint on? Lily nodded her head enthusiastically, and a new bed for my bunny. Within weeks, we moved and upgraded to a one-bedroom apartment closer to our work. It wasn't a palace, but it was bright, spacious, had a huge window, and above all, an entire table dedicated to her school crafts. The afternoon of the move, my mother drove up, bringing bell peppers from the garden, tomatoes, and a pot overflowing with fresh basil. She asked me with the utmost tact, "Will you let me put the basil on your balcony, or by the front door, if that's okay with you?" I answered with a half smile, "Yeah, Mom. Leave it right there where it gets good sun." That small action of consulting me confirmed that her respect for boundaries was still alive. Lily wouldn't stop running around the open living room. "Mommy, look, there are no leaks like in the old house." I hugged her and kissed the top of her head. "No, sweetie. In this place, nobody kicks us out, and the rain doesn't get us wet." I became the lead warehouse manager months later. Samantha and I grew to respect each other as inseparable partners in accounting struggles, and Barbara, although still just as tough, occasionally asked for operational advice regarding my department. Ethan, my deadbeat brother, sold his phone and worked extra shifts installing ductwork, slowly paying off every single one of his loan shark debts. My mother never gave him a single dollar behind my back again. As she herself said, "You do the crime, you pay the time. That's how you learn what life is, boy." I had given him a margin of grace. It wasn't blind trust all at once, but the door wasn't entirely closed. My dad, in his physical recovery, still struggled to build complete sentences. But one Sunday he visited us, took my hand over the plastic tablecloth, and said without stuttering much, "Sarah, eating together, happy." I had to bite my lip and quickly wipe my tears. Greg stayed firm and calmly in his place, always respecting our rhythm, and letting Lily continue setting her own pace, without any impositions from me. One November evening, leaning on the railing of my balcony and watching the sunset over the suburbs, he asked quietly, "Is it okay if in this new phase I stay by your side a little more seriously?" I looked at him straight on and answered with total honesty, "Greg, I no longer need heroes or people coming to fix my misfortunes. I need someone who loves me, who respects my daughter, and who never assumes that just because they support me, my voice and my decisions take a back seat." Greg nodded, without a second of hesitation. "Understood. I'm going to stay by your side, knowing exactly what my role is, without trying to change yours." Lily still called him Uncle Greg. There was no need to wipe anything away to add new color. Last week, she came home from school with a massive drawing. The two of us were at the kitchen table cooking. Grandma Rose was in the corner under the new balcony planter, and far off in the distance, she drew the father of the family behind a fence, the one she already spent some afternoons with, but around whom the entire universe of her childhood fears no longer revolved. I thought during a very bitter time that the day a marriage collapses meant dragging yourself through absolute misery. Over the years, I've proven that the greatest failure is not picking up papers at a courthouse, nor scrubbing dirty pans at 5 a.m. to feed a child. The real tragedy is when a person, out of fear of social ridicule or lack of money, indefinitely allows those who broke them to keep controlling the thermostat of their personal happiness, stripping them of their resources, their voice, their role as a mother, and their most valuable tools. The true balance any mother in a divorce situation must cling to is not just the checking account to pay for groceries, but her bulletproof legal papers in a drawer, her dignity against emotional blackmailers, and protecting from emotional assault the small corner where a child's heart lives. You must forgive your own blood to walk lighter. But forgiving does not mean, under any circumstances, handing over the keys to your peace so they can comfortably live off perpetual emotional blackmail. I understood that, looking at a recent single mother a few days ago, with red eyes, who came seeking help. I poured her a glass of water, handed her a list of social resources from the city, told her the best-rated public daycare, and repeated the words that saved me. You don't have to start from zero on your own. You are the result of a lot of patience, of all the sleepless nights, and you are coming out armed with inexhaustible resilience for your child. You see, you've just arrived at your real beginning, and honestly, at the true starting line, which is something very different. I went back to my apartment, my little oasis, smelling Grandma's pot roast, surrounded by children's drawings on recycled paper, and carrying the brutal certainty that no outside hurricane ever had permission to soak us again.